Your skill set turned out not nearly as transferable as
No.
you thought it would be.
Absolutely, no. I mean, I had gone from taking care of patients with life-threatening illness, septic shock, cardiogenic shock, post-lung and liver transplant patients who were critically ill, to having to assess whether or not a simple cut was going to become infected, or having to wrap a twisted ankle.
Taking out splinters.
Taking out
something
splinters.
you have to do a lot in ICU.
No, I have never taken out a splinter, other than perhaps from my own children. And so taking out a splinter is a lot more difficult and challenging a skill than you'd think.
Camp number 1, it was just such a hippy-dippy,
exactly.
touchy-feely, and it run down, and and everybody was just so mellow, especially about hygiene
and safety.
It's like, it just seemed like it got into trouble with the water system getting wrecked.
Yes, and to me the whole thing was typified by the rainstorm that came down, the camping, the terrain of the camp being very hilly, and then very quickly after this torrential rainstorm came down, these little hills and valleys filled with water, and the kids and the counselors hauled all the canoes up and sort of floating around in the puddles of water like it was the little lakes and ponds, and they just were having a whale of a time and taking off their clothes and dancing in the mud, and it was like a bacchanalia. It must have been, I thought to myself, like Woodstock. I'm not quite old enough to have experienced at Woodstock, but I've always imagined that must be what it was like, except for the music. And then they did bring in the music, but they were dragging the electric cord through the water, so I had to put a kibosh on that. So it was just one little disaster after another at that particular camp. But it was, I have to say, everyone had a good time, except for me. Everyone was having a grand time. And nothing really serious happened at that camp, strangely enough.
The second camp, I really wanted to hate the second camp.
Yep.
I wanted to hate them, but by the end of it, I was like, no, I think they actually do mean well, and it's not actually camp fascist as I thought of it at first.
No, I wanted to present a very fair portrayal of that camp, and that's a very popular kind of camp, and it serves a need, and it's a very important camp, and a lot of kids go to camps like that, and they have a great time. Their parents get a nice break from parenting. I think it's a win-win situation all around. What I found for myself personally, and it's a very personal decision, was that I felt I wanted my kids to have something more than just simply be entertained and be kept safe all summer. And those are big things. So being entertained and being kept safe are huge things. I'm not undermining them, and I think that a camp like that is a great thing. And kids who go to camp like that, I think they have a great time. For me personally, I wanted a camp where I could exploit, and I mean that in the best sense of the word, exploit the gift of the summer. The summer is such an amazing opportunity for children, and I think we can do more than just entertain and keep them safe. And this camp did offer that in terms of classes and teachings. And it is a faith-based camp that I was reluctant about in the beginning, but I think I was won over just simply by the people there, the preponderance that there were more adults there. I liked that there were rabbis there who talked to the kids about sexuality, talked to them about ethics, who introduced all these other elements that are also part of our life, and I don't think should be put on hold just because it's summer vacation and we want to chill. I think it's also important to talk to kids at this very precious time of their life, especially teenagers.
Camp number 1 seemed to have no rules, no morals.
It had a great ideology, though. They had a lot of beliefs, but no way to implement them and no way to carry them out. It had some good ideas.
Second camp was all about rules, but
devoid of
morals. Well, it didn't, because there's an incident that you talk about in the book where a staff member gets loses fingers, seriously injured.
I encountered a caste system that I'm never ever comfortable with as a nurse or a person, as a citizen. I cannot abide a caste system, and I encountered that there at that camp, where there was the divide of the kitchen counter, where on one side of the kitchen counter you had the privileged city kids from off backgrounds, and there's nothing wrong with that, but then that comes with a certain attitude and a sense of entitlement that the other side of the counter didn't count as much. And I felt that at that camp, and it did disturb me, especially when there was that accident that it required me to attend to that kitchen worker exclusively because the accident was so overwhelming. And then when I perhaps irresponsibly left camp to attend to that young, he was a boy really, he was 15, 16 years old, and then I was reprimanded for having left the camp, and the paying customers who were capably cared for by the one nurse and the other doctor were left behind. But it was a large camp, so it was a lot to leave for them. But my priority was with that camper who needed, it wasn't a camper, but he was still a patient, as you say, he was a patient and a person above all. So I guess the relationship with that camp did go down with that, and other evidence of that, where I saw this caste system, and I just can't. I don't like that. I can't, as a nurse. I don't make those differentiations. As a person, I don't make those differentiations.
You're going to do this camping nurse thing again, aren't you, this year?
I think I probably can't stay away this summer.
You've already said yes?
Yes, I have.
Lucky you.
I am lucky, aren't I? I see it that way too.
Do I need a camp interviewer? Because I would love to go.
It really is a fun gig. I have to say, it really is a fun gig.
Yeah. So you're going to keep doing it for a while longer, until what are you going to do when Max is old enough to not go? Are you going to?
Oh, I'll have to decide that. I don't know. You know, every time there comes a moment in the middle of camp, I think, what am I doing? I'm 50 years old. What am I doing? This getting up in the middle of the night and chasing some kid down who forgot his pills and whatever. I think, what am I doing this for? I'm 50. I can afford to stay home and take some time off work or just work. I don't need to. But then, I get over that moment, and then comes the end of my stint at camp, and I'm driving out of camp, and I think, oh, man, I miss those kids. And it's not just the kids, it's the counselors. I miss that place. I miss that whole magic of camp, and I long for it. And I start thinking, no, I'll be back next summer.
The book is Camp Nurse, My Adventures at Summer Camp. I've been speaking with the author Tilda Shalof and Camp Nurse, published by McClelland and Stewart.